Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update show where we're going to discuss all the latest news coming in. We're going to talk about Amorim's comments ahead of the Brighton game. We're going to talk about the latest on Lisandro Martinez and when he will return. Joshua Zirkzee wanting out of January move on the cards. Angelo Stiller has been linked to the latest on Maguire's contract, but also tactical changes that Amorim is making. And could this be the start of, some good form under Amorim? Amorim has changed his tactics versus Sunderland and versus Liverpool for the first time in ages, and we've won those two games. Amorim is making tactical adaptations. Le Mans coming in has allowed that. Sesko's obviously allowed that. Cunha's ball-holding abilities allowed us to be a bit more tactically flexible. There's still big issues in central build-up, but he's obviously going with a more long ball approach with Le Mans in. So when we're being pressed, we're not struggling as much in build-up. We're going to talk about Amorim's tactical changes. We're going to talk about the likes of Zirkzee and more. But I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you do enjoy today's live stream. Let me know your thoughts down below and all of that as well. But a man says that we need centre-backs next summer. You're and De Ligt are the only ones that are good enough. Martinez, Maguire and Shaw aren't good enough. Heaven needs to develop. I agree and disagree with some of it. I think it's time for Luke Shaw to go bye-bye. But I think De Ligt and Euro are brilliant. I think if Lisandro Martinez can stay fit, he's brilliant. I think his fitness with Lisandro Martinez, and I think Maguire's a good bench option. I think Maguire's a good option to have in the squad for experience, bench depth. But I agree, Euro and De Ligt are our best centre-backs. Maguire's very good for experience and bench depth. And I think if Lisandro Martinez stays fit, he's good enough, and I think Heaven needs time to develop. I do think we need one more centre-back potentially in the summer because we lost Lindelof and Evans, and we never brought in a centre-back. If we get European football, I'd like one more centre-back if we get European football. I will say that. For me, one centre-back, two midfielders, and a wing-back is key. And I would have Semenyo as the wing-back because he can also play further up. I would have Gay as the centre-back. I would have Wharton and Baleba as the midfielders, or an Elliot Anderson. Look, Martinez is physically weak, I agree. He's not overrated on the ball. I disagree with that. But I do think there's physicality issues there. But I thought that Martinez, his last few games before he picked up that ACL, was very, very good. I think he looked a bit rocky, Martinez, at the beginning of the season. Then built some form under Amorim for about a month or so. And then had that horrible, horrible injury as well. But yeah, Steve says United deserve credit versus Liverpool. They defended good, but could have kept the ball better, would have given them more confidence. I agree. And that's why Cunha was so important in that second half. And that was why Cunha was the second half man of the match, because he was the guy keeping the ball and just taking a little bit of pressure off us, which was good to see. But look, back-to-back wins, people. Back-to-back wins. When did we last say that in the Premier League? Nearly 2 years ago. So lots of good things to see. If we're going to look at the Premier League table and just see where we're at, Amorim's actually making changes to his system, to his tactics as well, which is great to see. And look, all of a sudden, back-to-back wins and we're in a better position. But there's one team we never beat, and that is Brighton. Do you know what? Almost winning, and I know this sounds crazy to say, but beating Brighton might be a better achievement in a weird way. Not a better achievement. Not a better achievement. Beating Brighton is a bigger test than Liverpool. And the reason I say that is because I feel like we're up for the Liverpool game sometimes. We know it's a big game, up for it. We're never really up for those Brighton games. The Brightons, the Crystal Palaces, they're the games that for me are the must-wins. Versus Liverpool, the pressure's on Liverpool to win. We're more up for it. It's a big game. And I felt that versus Arsenal, I know we lost, but it was a good performance. Versus Manchester City last season, we beat them and drew to them. Under Ruben Amorim at Liverpool last season, we went to Anfield and drew. We seem to be all right under Ruben Amorim in the big games. We knocked Arsenal out the FA Cup. Do you know what we struggle under Amorim? It is the games like the Crystal Palaces and the Brightons where we're expected to win, but actually we can't win because we're quite even on paper. I think that is almost like the biggest test. If we go and beat Brighton and get 3 games in a row, then you can say, okay, maybe we're onto something here. Because I feel like Brighton, Anfield's the biggest win we can get. But I feel like Brighton is such a big test, particularly for Manchester United. So yeah, let's look at the league table quickly here. So obviously Arsenal are top of the league quite comfortably as well. I mean, Arsenal just look ridiculously good at the moment. I absolutely hate it. You can never rule Manchester City out. I'm going to ask you, Man United fans down below, would you rather Man City or Arsenal win the league? Because Arsenal fans are just so chronically online and unbearable. I feel like when City win the league, because they're kind of irrelevant, everyone forgets about it. But Arsenal, it's just like, I don't know. Like Liverpool was the worst team for me. Arsenal and City are on a similar level to me. I think because I grew up in Essex, and went to school in Essex, and it was a Man United Arsenal rivalry in the early 2000s when I was growing up. So I feel like I have a bit of like a screw Arsenal. Man City were always irrelevant growing up. But then I'm like, the thought of Man City winning is horrible. Like Man City's downfall was so nice. Arsenal's downfall was so nice. Liverpool's downfall was so nice. We need Bournemouth to go win the league. No one's gonna care if Bournemouth win the league. You know what I mean as well. But yeah, I'm interested to see who people prefer, Arsenal or City. I agree, Alice. Beating Brighton will mean Liverpool winners, no fluke. It will be three straight wins. Yeah, because this is what I feel, and I'm not trying to come across negative. Sunderland is a newly promoted side. I know Sunderland have been good this season. I know they're 7th in the league, but we've beat a newly promoted side at home. Every season you're expected to beat the newly promoted sides at home. Liverpool at Anfield, the win was due. It was a good win. It was a big win. I honestly think when you look at Cody Gakpo hitting the post 3 times, we could have easily drew that game. We got the rub of the green and we won the game. And I think we deserved it in the end when you look at everything. But I think Brighton is that test. It's like you expect to beat Sunderland. Liverpool you don't expect to win, but it's a big game. The Brightons and the Crystal Palaces, and the Bournemouths, they are the games that are almost testing you because these are the better mid-table clubs. These are the ones you've got to beat to climb the table. Do you know what I mean? Like these for me are the big tests. So this is the interesting thing. A lot of people say they prefer Arsenal to City. I mean, they're both just annoying. Our goal difference tells a lot. If we beat Brighton, it will switch towards the positive side. It's a game we're expected to take initiative. I agree. Goal difference is always a good factor of, do you deserve to be where you are in the league table? Sometimes you look at goal difference. If you're 4th in the league table with the 12th best goal difference, you think, okay, they're probably going to slip down later in the season, etc. Our goal difference, we've got the worst goal difference in the top half of the table. So yeah, I think there's that. You could look at it and say, well, actually, we're probably around 11th, 12th if we're looking at goal difference this season. But hopefully things can change. But also, you've got to remember with Man United, we're the only team in the opening 8 games that have played Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. There was 4 title contenders: Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. We've played all 4 of them. No one else has played all 4 of them at this point. We had the hardest opening 10 fixtures in the Premier League as well. I think that people forget. So I think to be at 9th, it isn't the end of the world. I said I want Europa League. The expectation is Europa League because, look, I think 5th will be Champions League and I think 6th and 7th will be Europa League and I think 8th will be Conference League. I think Ruben Amorim has a team that is good enough to finish top 8. I think if we don't finish top 8, I will look at Ruben Amorim because, things are doing well now, but we should be finishing top 8. I think our squad is good enough to finish top 6. I'm not lying. We've got Ahmad, we've got Mbuma, we've got Cunha, we've got Seska, we've got Zirkzee, we've got Maino, we've got Bruno. We've got so many good players. Mason Mount if he stays fit. Yoro, they're licked. Other than wing backs, and Lamons looks good now. I think we have such a good squad that I think the expectation on Amorim is you've got to get into Europe next season. I honestly think that. I think if Ruben Amorim came 10th, that is not good enough. And some people are like, but 10th and improvement of 15th is a long process and let's give him time. No, Ruben Amorim's got to get European football for me. He's got to get European football for me because I think that this team is good enough. There's not really any new takeover news. It's a lot of the same stuff being spoken about. I might cover it later in today's show. Do I like the change to long ball? No and yes. I like the fact that Ruben Amorim has a plan B for when we're getting pressed, but it's not going to work in every game. We should be good enough to play Brentford and Sunderland out the park and not have to resort to long ball, but sadly we're not good enough on the ball yet. Long ball is great when you're playing Arsenal's, when you're playing City, when you're playing Liverpool is good, but I think we need to also be able to you can do long ball you want, but we also need to be good enough to beat teams other ways, particularly lower down the table teams. But we're going to talk about Amorim's tactical changes and stuff in a second. But yeah, I was just touching upon the league table, and look, as I said, we are 1 point behind Chelsea in 5th. 1 point behind Chelsea in 5th, 2 points behind Liverpool in 3rd, 6 points off the top, 3 points off 2nd. Not bad. You can just go the other end of the table and say that you're also 3 points off 13th, 4 points off 14th. But look, we're well out of that relegation zone. I mean, Forest being there is funny. I can't lie, because Mr. Marinakis, man, that is quite funny. But look, we're comfortably here in a decent position. We beat Brighton. All of a sudden we might be looking in like 6th place. But Brighton is the bogey team for Manchester United. I mean, let me get up our last results versus Brighton. Manchester United. I can't remember the last time we beat Brighton. I feel like was it when Bruno scored that penalty? It's got to be. We've got to have beat Brighton since Bruno scored that penalty. Results. Man United versus Brighton results. Let me have a look. So we lost to Brighton twice last season. Like we always lose to Brighton. We lost 2-1 to Brighton at home last season, which was like the second game of the season. João Pedro scored right at the end. We also lost to Brighton 3-1 under Amorim. That was, the game that Amorim smashed up the TV? Do you remember when Amorim had completely smashed up the TV and everything and threatened to quit? And that was obviously last season. That was the last time we played Brighton. Amorim almost quit. The season before that, we did beat Brighton 2-0 in the second last game of the season. So the last time we beat Brighton was when Højlund came off the bench and scored the second last game of the season before the FA Cup final. But we lost to Brighton at the beginning of that season. We also need to play Brighton at the beginning of the season. We've only beaten Brighton once in our last 7 fixtures. We lost 3-1 to them. We've only beaten Brighton once in our last 7 fixtures. I mean, Brighton is that team. It's not an easy game. They almost beat Newcastle. Brighton is never an easy game. Brighton is that game that I just absolutely don't like. I just absolutely dread if I'm going to be totally honest. It's that game that I never look forward to. But I just realised, am I lagging? My thing is frozen. I hope the quality's right. I hope it's not too laggy. But it says that my thing is frozen here, which is a bit weird. But yeah, let's get into the news because I feel like I've just spent like 10 minutes waffling and I haven't actually got into the news. This is the thing about my live streams is when I do my 10-minute roundups, I get straight into the news. When I start doing a live stream, we start talking about this, we start talking about that. We just start talking about a load of crap and I have this and this in the title and thumbnail and I'm like, oh, we need to speak about it because we're 10 minutes in. So yeah. But what I did want to quickly get up was the fixture list. Brighton, that's a huge test. New manager bounce Forest. So Brighton, huge test. New manager bounce Forest. Tottenham. We haven't beaten Tottenham in 3 seasons. We lost them 4 times last year. Everton, which again, difficult game. Palace, difficult game. West Ham, we should win. I look at West Ham and Wolves and I go, we should walk those games. Bournemouth is difficult. Palace is difficult. Tottenham is difficult. Brighton is difficult. Everton we should beat. Forest new manager mounts. You don't know what to expect, but we should beat them. Then you've got Villa, who we have a good record against. Newcastle, but we're at home, so you would back us. Wolves again, which is fine. Leeds, finally, boom, batter them. Burnley, boom, batter them. Manchester Derby at home, we should be up for it. Arsenal away, should be up for it. Fulham, difficult game, but we sometimes get a result versus Fulham. Tottenham, again, difficult game. West Ham, we should be up for it. I mean, that's me just looking through the fixture list and stuff. Some people are scared, some people are positive, but these are the games. Brighton, Palace and Bournemouth are the games which are for me the biggest test of where we're at, because these are the games that we don't win, and these are the games where we're expected to win, but they're also a good side too, and we don't win. They are those 3 games for me. We don't beat Tottenham either, but they are the games. Alice, this Brighton game will show us where we are. I think if we go and beat Brighton 3-1 and play them off the park and play some really good football, I'm going to say, you know what? Hold up. Maybe we're doing something this season. But if we get our annual 3-1 loss to Brighton, expected. Won't be happy, but it'd be expected. I think Brighton is such a bogey team for a lot of people. Like, it's Newcastle's bogey team. Newcastle fans always go, oh, Welbeck scores against us again. Chelsea fans always go, oh, Welbeck scores against us again. And Man United fans are like, Welbeck scores against us again. Brighton is such a bogey team. Worry against Leeds could be about a number of AFCON players. True. I mean, we're going to have to talk about AFCON later on. We're going to lose Mbeumo and Ahmad for potentially 6 games. What was the first half versus Liverpool was good. The second half versus Liverpool wasn't great. But the first half versus Liverpool was good because Mbeumo and Ahmad was cooking them. The first half versus Sunderland was good because Mbeumo and Ahmad was cooking them. We're not just losing Mbeumo, we're losing Mbeumo and Ahmad. And when you look at our best games and when you look at our best performances in games and our best spells in games, it's always come from Mbeumo and Ahmad cooking them. Every time we've had a good spell in a game, it's come from Mbeumo and Ahmad on the right-hand side cooking the opposition. Every good spell we have. So losing them to AFCON is a worry because we're going to miss them for the Villa game, we're going to miss them for the Newcastle game, we're going to miss them for the Leeds game. Hopefully, you know, one of them gets knocked out early and we at least get one of them back. Because imagine when we're at AFCON, we're thinking Delo, right wing back. We're thinking, you know, Delo. I personally don't like Delo at wing back. I'm going to be honest. I personally do not like Delo at wing back. I liked Delo in the back four, but you know, when you looked at the Liverpool game, and I'm not being negative because I think Mason Mount has been one of our best players this season, but we had Ahmad and Mbeumo on the right, and we had Delo and Mount on the left. I don't remember Delo and Mount doing anything on the left. Like Mount did some good presses and stuff. I remember Mbeumo and Ahmad tearing Liverpool apart on the right. That left-hand side, that right-hand side, it's a huge difference. So again, Delo and Mount versus Ahmad and Mbeumo, and I think Mount has been one of our best players this season. But it is just like a because I honestly think when we have won games and when we have played well, it's because Ahmad and Mbeumo have been two of the best players on the pitch. So that is that worry with AFCON. So should we talk about Amorim and his comments ahead of Brighton? Because I realise I haven't gone into my notes. And then should we talk a little bit about the tactical changes Amorim is making, Joshua Zirkzee, and actually talk about the things mentioned in the title and thumbnail of this video. Amorim said this. He was asked basically if his best win was Liverpool, and he said, "I hope the best win will be against Brighton because it's next week. This one in Liverpool is in the past. People will now forget. We have 1 week. You're going to talk about a lot of things, so it doesn't matter. Today they can enjoy. Tomorrow we can focus on Brighton." So Amorim is saying the best win will be against Brighton because that's next week. At the end of the day, we could have battered Liverpool 4-0. Imagine if we'd have gone and battered Liverpool 4-0. If we go and lose to Brighton this weekend, 3-1, and we play crap, us battering Liverpool 4-0 the week before, well, we've instantly forgot about it. And Amorim is right. This Liverpool win is great, but we now need to go and beat Brighton to make it not just a one-off win. This is the test. The Brightons, the Palaces, the Bournemouths. These are the games we don't win. These are the ones where you're like, okay, we need to go off and win this game. We need to go off and win that game. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Can't complain about Delo, he's a right back. I agree to an extent. I've been quite critical of Delo lately, but I'm also aware that Delo, when we played a back four, was very good for us. He doesn't suit the system. He's not a wing back. He doesn't play in the back five. I'm also aware that Delo was rushed back from injury. So I am like critical of Delo, but then I'm also like, this doesn't mean Delo is a bad player. I think Delo could play for a top club and be one of their best players. I just think with Delo, he doesn't suit the system. There's certain players that I think are very good players, but they don't suit the system. Bruno Fernandes does not suit the system. Bruno Fernandes is our best player. For me, Bruno Fernandes is our best player. I think our best player post Sir Alex Ferguson, you can argue with Pogba, but I think, you know, Bruno's had that longevity and been available more than Pogba. You know, you could argue talent-wise, maybe Pogba, you know, pulled Pogba on his day. I mean, you can't get much better than that. But for me, Bruno is our best player post Sir Alex. But Bruno does not suit the system. Bruno's been a liability in a lot of games. Like, for me, Bruno was crap versus Liverpool. But what's Bruno do? He puts in a fantastic ball to Maguire and we win the game 2-1. And that's the thing about Bruno, is he can be crap, but he can win you a game. And he doesn't suit the system. He is a defensive liability. I think he looks much better in the 10 roles. But it's one of those where, like, with Bruno, we know he's a great player, but he don't suit the system. We know Delo's a good back four defender, but he's not a good back five defender. So there's also things that you need to take into account. I think Bruno should play out the pitch. I think with AFCON, it'll be interesting to see if Bruno goes into the right 10. I'd like to see Maino Casemiro pivot, with potentially Cunha, Bruno, and Sesko up top. I'd quite like to see that. I don't think he'll drop Mason Mount, but I'd quite like to see that. Bruno being a little bit higher. But look, big game ahead. But I agree with Amorim's comments here. So let's dive into some more news and updates. Lisandro Martinez took part in a sizable amount of first-team training on the grass on Monday. So the session consisted of squad members who did not feature heavily against Liverpool and a few academy players. So it's good to see Lisandro Martinez being a bit more back and involved in training, which is good to see. Lisandro Martinez took part in a sizable amount of first team on grass training on Monday. The session consisted of squad members who did not feature heavily against Liverpool and a few academy players. It's good to see Leach is on the return. I now want to talk about the outs. This is the big concern for me because I'm a big Joshua Zirkzee fan. I really like Joshua Zirkzee. I think there's a really good player there. But I think just not being in Europa League, not being in the Carabao Cup, we couldn't even get minutes versus Liverpool, and that's sad. But Cunha and Sesko were the first choice number 9s for Amorim. The number 10s, you've got Mount, you've got Cunha, you've got Mbeumo, you've got Ahmad, you've got Bruno. There's no opportunities there for Zirkzee. That hasn't done anything wrong. All he did was get injured, because before he got injured, he was probably our best attacker. And it feels like it's the way out for Zirkzee. And Zirkzee's unhappy. I think he wants the move, and that's fair. West Ham are preparing a loan move for Zirkzee. Despite United being reluctant to let him leave, Zirkzee is unhappy about his lack of game time. Zirkzee is not agitating for a move, but is understood to be open to exploring his options come January. Zirkzee wants out of United. It's not that he's desperate to leave Manchester United, because Zirkzee rejected clubs last January in Italy that went in for him. Zirkzee got approached by a number of clubs in Italy in the summer, but because Zirkzee ended last season pretty well for United before his injury and was probably the first attacker on the team sheet at one point, but that was because there was Højlund and Garnacho to compete with, because Ahmad was out injured. Zirkzee, was the first attacker on the team sheet at one point last season. So Zirkzee, rightly so, was rejecting loads of clubs in the summer, because Zirkzee's thinking, well, I finished the season better than Højlund. I was the first choice number 9 over Højlund the back end of last season. Then I got injured. I was the best attacker in my last 2 months at Manchester United before I got injured. So Zirkzee, rightly so, is thinking, well, I'll reject this club and I'll reject that club because things are going well at Man United and I want to stay at Man United. And then we go and sign Sesko, Cunha, and Mbeumo. And all of a sudden, Zirkzee's rejected all these clubs in the summer because things are going well at United and he thinks he's going to play. And we think he's going to play and we think he's going to have an important part of the season, to then find out he's really down the pecking order. And Zirkzee loves Man United. He wants Man United to succeed. He celebrated more than anyone else when Maguire scored that winner. I don't know if you saw Zirkzee's celebration. You can tell that Zirkzee loves the club. Like, he's not a Garnacho stropping on the bench because he's not playing. He's on the bench and he's like more happy than anyone that we've won this game. Zirkzee loves the club, but Zirkzee's thinking, I want to play football here. The World Cup is coming up. I'm not getting the minutes. And you're like, fair play. And I wouldn't sell Zirkzee, because I think if we get European football next season, we're going to need him in the squad. But I would loan Zirkzee in January. And I don't like the idea of loaning Zirkzee in January, because if Sesko gets injured or Cunha gets injured, we're like, shh. But I'm open to it. I'm open to it. I really am. Because I feel for him and I can see why he potentially wants to go. Zirkzee's been hard done by, so technically good. Problem with Zirkzee is he needs to run a game to get up to scratch. If we do give him a few minutes off the bench here and there, he's going to look rusty. That's the other thing. The thing with Zirkzee is he's not one of those players that can just hit the ground running. If we keep giving him 10, 15-minute cameos off the bench, he's going to look rusty. The problem with Zirkzee, and this is what we can't do, but Zirkzee almost needs to start 4 or 5 games in a row to get up to max sharpness. He really does, because he hasn't had that pre-season. If Zirkzee had that pre-season and 4 or 5 games in a row to get up to max sharpness, we'd see the best out of him, which is a shame. I like Zirkzee, but not fully convinced yet we can afford to let go due to lack of depth. And I agree, I'm not fully convinced yet. I want to see where we're at come January, after AFCON, where we're at. I think Zirkzee and Maino should be getting more minutes. Zirkzee can be a really good, valuable squad player. I'd like to see Zirkzee and Maino get more minutes. And I think Amorim has a little bit of favouritism there that I personally am not the biggest fan of. Should we talk about Amorim's new tactics? I touched upon this in a video the other day on Seny Larsman's, but Amorim has been changing his tactics approach a little bit more lately to more of a long ball approach. And it's not the best long-term tactic. It's not a tactic that I'm like, wow, these are going to be the tactics for us in the future. But for me, Amorim is making a few tactical adaptations and has a plan B. It's not going to work for every game. It's not a long-term solution. But Amorim has, when teams press us, high and hard, we struggle. When teams come at us and they really press us, we really do struggle. So to have a plan B is really important to get around these presses, and that's what United is sort of building upon. So let me dive into this one sec. Let me share my screen. Seny Larsman's on Liverpool. We know how they press man-to-man, so being realistic, coming into Anfield is quite difficult to build up with defenders. We made the decision of long ball, do it with second balls, even though we didn't have a target striker, how we score first. The reason we beat Sunderland was because we were lobbing long balls into Sesko, and Sesko was winning them. We didn't have Sesko versus Liverpool, but we were lobbing those long balls in, and that's how we score first, and he's absolutely right. Seny Larsman's, is saying that, since he's come in, we're doing the long ball. Mason Mount said after the Sunderland game that Amorim had made a tactical tweak. Now Le Mans is in goal, and he said any danger of them pressing, he puts it into Sesko and we work off that. I think Le Mans kind of releases a lot of pressure today, and this is what Mount said versus Sunderland. Since Le Mans has come in these last 2 games, we're just lobbing it to Sesko. Amorim's new tactic is Le Mans lob it to Sesko. That's not going to work in every game. When we play Burnley, when we play Leeds, we should be able to play them out the park and not resort to long ball. Long ball can't win you every game. Being direct cannot win you every game. But it's a plan B from Amorim. He's got Sesko, he's got Le Mans, and he's like, well, Le Mans can lob it long, Sesko can win it long. All of a sudden, we've got this big tactical shift here, and I completely agree with what H said here. All in all, I don't mind going long at all, or even as a plan B. I'm more concerned that plan A is too easy to prevent. Therefore, our second option becomes the most common one. I said in the summer, the signings point towards a transitional style. Sesko and Buma, Cunha, Amadorgo at wingback, and Bruno deeper for direct launches. I don't mind it. I love direct football. I don't think it's negative. It only becomes a negative of a certain level when it's used too often, which currently it is. We should be competent enough to play around and through the likes of Sunderland, Brentford without having to resort to long ball, but it's all right to have long ball as a plan B. It's good to see that Amorim has made a tactical change, has made a tactical adaptation, because my biggest criticism of Amorim is he does the same thing over and over again and it's not working. It's good to see that Le Mans and Sesko have given Amorim a bit of tactical flexibility to say, you know, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, which is good. But look, we need to see different ways of playing. And I think if we can get a midfielder that's good on the ball, we can get another centre back here, we can get some good wing backs and ball progression, things can change. But yeah. Zirkzee's quite unfortunate he can't get a sniff. I think it's time for his development with the pressure on the team. I think there's no time for his development with the pressure on the team. I agree with you a little bit there. Amorim changing his tactics changed what? I mean, it's not a huge tactical change. He's got a plan B. Long ball. It's nothing super impressive, but it's at least he's trying something else, because we've been waiting for him to try something else for a year. Problem with Zirkzee, can't justify dropping Cunha and Abuma, and he doesn't really score much. Exactly. Sesko as well. People were mad confused that Amorim had dropped Sesko for the Liverpool game, because Sesko's been good lately as well. Football isn't just about scoring, so Zirkzee can play for us. Yeah, Zirkzee offers so much outside of goals. His link-up was phenomenal. There's rumours of getting Ivan Toney on loan in January. I think if we're going to sign anyone in January, it'll be a midfielder. I don't see us signing an attacker. I think it will be a midfielder if we sign someone in January, unless there's a big injury in defence. Unless there's a big injury somewhere, I think it will be a midfielder. Maybe we look at wing-back, but I think that will be summer. Look, against Forest, we don't want to be playing long balls. Against Sean Dyche's Forest, the last thing you want to see from Manchester United is long ball FC. I agree. You know, I'm all for having long ball against the bigger teams, having a plan B, Amorim changing his way of playing, having adaptations. But I agree, the last thing you want to see would be Man United trying to beat Forest through the long ball. It'd be a little bit embarrassing. We'd be like, this is Sean Dyche's Forest. Like, we should be able to play around them a bit better. I agree. People are getting excited that United are looking at Ivan Toney. I don't want Ivan Toney. We've got Sesko, we've got Cunha, we've got Zirkzee that can play number 9. If you told me Ivan Toney or a midfielder in January, I'm picking midfielder any single day of the week. I think Sesko's good. Sandro Tonali has signed a secret contract extension with Newcastle. That's huge news, because I tell you this now, Sandro Tonali is one of the best players in the league. He's as good as Moises Caicedo, but because Moises Caicedo is doing it at Chelsea and in cup finals, he won't get the credit Moises Caicedo gets. So that's huge news for Newcastle, because I would have been all over Tonali if I was Man United in the summer. Not that I think we would have got Tonali, but I would have been all over Tonali in the summer. If I was Man United, but I don't think Tonali would have come to us. Bruno Fernandes has created the most chances in the Premier League this season, despite playing as a number 6. I mean, that's just a mad stat in itself. But I told you, Bruno is a different breed. Matheus Cunha was fantastic versus Liverpool. People giving him stick because he didn't get a goal and assist yet. I know that's because people don't watch football. You know, it's not about goals and assists. It's about holding the ball, doing this, doing that. And I thought Cunha was absolutely phenomenal versus Liverpool. Le Mans was brilliant. I thought De Ligt was great. Obviously, Maguire got his goal. So yeah, listen, people, I'm going to wrap up today's live show. I'm going to redirect you over to Never a Foul. Do smash the likes on the way out. Feel free to subscribe if you're new. See you next time. Bye.